We're going to get going here. We got a couple of preliminaries to cover. I know. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group. My name's Ron. I'm an alcoholic. I'd like to welcome everybody here. Hopefully we'll have some fun today. We got a nice, delicious lunch for you guys around 12:30. We're going to do two sessions, two 1-hour sessions. We'll have a smoke break in between each one. We'll do lunch. We'll come back, do a couple more sessions. What else do I got to cover here? Pretty much that's about it. Oh, absolutely no smoking on the church property. There is a bucket right across that street. Please just put the butts into that. And the bathroom is down the left down there if you got to go. Please try not to be too disruptive. We're going to get going down with Adrian and Bob here, and enjoy yourselves. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Bob D Adrian, and I'm an alcoholic.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Adrian Clark. I'm an alcoholic.
We're going to do about half hour break, half hour break, lunch. Probably an hour, about 12 something, 12:20, 12:30. I'm just curious. Let's open with a prayer. It's a good idea. Always a good idea. Amen. I'm curious who's here. How many people are here in their first year of absolute abstinence, free from everything? Well, welcome. Glad you're here. How about in your first 30 days? Wow, glad you're here. Anybody in there tired of us in your last 30 days? You're just up to here with us, I wouldn't admit it. You'd be gang 12-stepped here, I think. How many people have ever been through a weekend, a day like this of going through the steps? How many people feel pretty comfortable with where they're at with the steps? How many people would like to grow along those lines? Wow, see, not so comfortable as you thought. How many people here have adopted the set of spiritual principles as a way to live from the 12 traditions to reduce your selfishness even more? Okay. Well, what we're going to try to do, I really shouldn't speak for Adrian. I'm going to try to share my experience, and try to stay away from the academic side of this. There's the problem with the academic side is the ego loves knowledge because it grandizes itself into smug superiority with knowledge. But Alcoholics Anonymous is not an academic endeavor. It's, as my grand sponsor Chuck Chamberlain used to say, it's an inside job. It's experiential. In step 1, in chapter 3, it talks about it differently than you see in the rooms on the walls. It said we learned we had to fully is like a lot, fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. Here's the problem I had. That's why one of the reasons I relapsed for years. I could intellectually admit that I was alcoholic. The evidence was overwhelming. Far before I could really, truly, inside myself, connect the dots and believe it. And it was exemplified by my actions. Because my words and the chatter in my head was conversations that sounded like I'm really an alcoholic. And then watch my feet, and I don't act powerless. I'm unsponsorable. It's like, thank you for the information, right? I'm that guy. And so consequently, with a full knowledge intellectually of my condition, I continued to drink again. And when you really, truly don't believe in your innermost self that you have this terminal, fatal illness, you don't have to put all your chips in the pot here. Because it's not a matter of life and death. AA can become, and especially AA can become like a self-help thing where you do drive-bys through AA to enhance yourself, but it's still a very selfish endeavor, right? And Alcoholics Anonymous is not a selfish endeavor, it's an endeavor towards self-reduction, surrender, and service. So I had a hard time fully conceding to my innermost self that I was an alcoholic. I was delusional about a lot of aspects of this disease. One of the things that Dr. Silkworth talks about that was paramount, and I really had to get this, not just intellectually, but really get it. And the only way I get stuff like this is by failure. My life, in a sense, is built on failure and being wrong about a lot of crap. Isn't that odd that your life would be built, an amazing life could be built on being wrong? But it makes perfect sense, because otherwise there'd be a step that said, and when we were right, promptly admitted it. I've never known anybody grow by being right. But I've changed the world that I live in by being wrong. And one of the things that was so hard for me to get, because I didn't want to get it, when it says in chapter 3 that most of us have been unwilling to admit we were real alcoholics, I didn't want to do that. I'm an alcoholic, sort of. Or even after 5-6 treatment centers where I've been intellectually bludgeoned into a knowledge that I'm alcoholic, even then, I'm alcoholic, but I'm a special kind of alcoholic. My case is different. I don't have to do what you people do. I don't have to be sponsored. I don't have to be accountable. I don't have to seek God. I don't have to humble myself continually with these humbling actions we do in AA, the amends, humbling actions. Devoting your life to helping others even when it's inconvenient. Tough stuff if you're self-involved. So I didn't, first of all, I didn't know what it was to be an alcoholic. And then a thing happens sometimes when the truth about my condition presented in Alcoholics Anonymous actually does a head-on collision with my condition. And what that means is year after year of trying to control and enjoy my drinking and failing, I started to understand a few things about myself. That this thing that Silkworth talks about, that defines us, that it really was true for me. And yet it's odd, I went for years and years and couldn't see it, that I have this allergic reaction to alcohol. And he said that this allergy, unlike a lot of allergies, doesn't manifest itself in hives, or a breakout in a runny nose, or any of that stuff. It manifests itself in a phenomenon, a craving. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means that every single time I've drank alcohol, regardless of what I fancied my real problem was, my real problem is my emotions, my real problem is my mental illness, my real problem is heroin, my real problem is speed, my real problem is coke, whatever I fancy my real problem is, if I drink alcohol, a consistency occurs. As the effect of the alcohol starts to hit me and I get that feeling, I break out this irresistible yearning for more. I've always had that. And yet I could never see it because of the way that this disease will use your own mind against you. There's a test in the big book. I've actually, in the last couple of years, I think it's a good test. I started recommending. I was afraid to recommend it for decades here because what if they get hurt? The test is, if you don't think you're an alcoholic, you think we're full of crap? Okay, let's find out. I think you're better off knowing. Let's go to the nearest bar room. Let's try some controlled drinking. Let's drink and then stop abruptly. Well, on paper, that looks like a good test, unless you have the same kind of mind I have. Because if I'm going to go, I'm going to go down here to this bar, and I'm going to go in there, and I'm going to see if I got this phenomenon craving. I don't think I do. I mean, I get in trouble, for God's sakes, I know that. All right, but I'm gonna see. Okay, I'll have two, I'm just gonna have two. Just two drinks, since it's only two doubles. Two double drinks, two doubles. And then I gotta shut her down and I gotta go home. I can't smoke nothing, take nothing, can't switch to beer, nothing. Two drinks, that's it. Well, if you're like me, when you start into that second drink, it'll start to become very apparent that this is a bad test day. Because there'd be some girl on the bar that you're a member of the opposite sex that you'd look at and go, oh my God, that could be my soulmate. I can't leave now. Or that game is on. I didn't know that game was on. I can't leave while that game's on. Or Joe just walked in. Joe's got some good stuff to smoke. I got to have a drink with Joe. It's a bad test day. Tomorrow would be a better test day. And I don't understand that when I initiate alcohol into my system, it creates a craving that uses my own mind against me. And here's the sad part. I think the next drink's my idea. I don't know what's happening to me. It looks to me like it's my idea. And I am being punked out by an allergic reaction to alcohol time and time and time again, and I can't see the cause and effect because of my ability to justify everything I yearn and crave for. So I can't see it. But I started to see it. And I started to see it the only way guys like me can see it is you try and you fail and you try and you fail. And I started to understand that I have that thing that you guys in AA talk about. I didn't think I had it, but I have it. I can't pick up the first drink. For me to pick up a drink's like having sex with a gorilla. I ain't done till the gorilla's done. It's a bad deal. I can't take the first drink. And I think the knowledge of that is going to save me because my ego always believed that it would find power in knowledge and information. And so puffed up with the real knowledge that I must not take the first drink or any other substance that does that thing for me, because if it does that thing for me, it's going to do that thing to me. So puffed up with that, and coupled with, I've really hurt myself a lot, and I get it, and a sincere, determined intention of never picking it up. I think I'm out of the woods, and in actuality, I entered into the worst, most horrific years of my life. The years of swearing to myself time and time again and meaning it. I'm never going to touch that stuff, and I go back to it again. And I don't think it can't be alcoholism. I must have some kind of mental illness or something. And if you go to a psychiatrist looking for a diagnosis, a funny thing happens. You get one. You go to a barber shop, you're probably going to get a haircut. I mean, it's just like that. And so I get these multiple diagnoses and multiple treatments and medications and everything. And the problem is, I may get a little bit of relief from that stuff initially, but I'm always back to being me again. And here's the real problem. Granted, I have an abnormal reaction to alcohol, but what I don't see is I have this abnormal reaction to abstinence. That abstinence slowly and incrementally drives me insane. And Silkworth starts to talk about it in the doctor's opinion when he describes guys like me when we quit drinking, when he says that we become restless, irritable, and discontented. And we all kind of know what that is, sort of. You know, that restlessness. There's probably people sitting here today that you can't imagine sitting here all day. Matter of fact, you just can't imagine it. I mean, it's like you're every 20 minutes you're looking at your watch. It's like, when's the man gonna stop? You know, that's right. It's like, because you get there's this feeling that would have come over me, like wherever I am, I kind of need to be somewhere else. Where is that, Bob? I don't know, but it's not here. I'm irritable. I don't know I'm irritable, but I'm on the muscle with people all the time. You know, you can't talk to me. People walk on eggshells around me because I'm an asshole, right? because I'm uptight all the time. I'm on the defensive all the time. I'm judgmental. I don't think I'm irritable. I think I just see how stupid people are clearly. That's what it looks like to me. And in this, because I'm restless, I need to straighten them out and tell them what's wrong with them, which puts you in the position. And some of you probably have noticed this or felt this at times. Do you ever get that sense that everybody's going to be happier after you leave? You know? And I'm always the guy that's leaving. So I'm restless, I'm irritable, and I'm chronically malcontent. I got a hole inside my being that nothing will fill up. Nothing. And it's not from a lack of trying. There's not enough sex, there's not enough money, there's not enough prestige, there's not enough self-aggrandizement, there's not enough getting enough people to think I'm wonderful. Because first of all, if you're an egomaniac with an inferiority complex, which means it's not so much you're a piece of whale crap, you're a very special piece of whale crap. If I get you to really love me or adore me, I immediately lose respect for you. Do you know what I'm saying? You're stupid. You know what I mean? It's like in a relationship, I get hooked up with these girls that adore me. And the minute I realize they adore me, it's like, ooh, God, I don't want to be with them. I need a girlfriend that has taste. You know what I'm saying, right? Isn't that that's a funny dynamic, really. It's a bad deal, really. So I'm restless, irritable, and I'm chronically malcontent. Yet I'm desperate. It's a vacancy-driven disease. The book says we're driven by 100 forms of fear. Oh, God. Fear of this, whatever the thing I've targeted, I'm not going to get it or I'm going to lose it. And fear of what you think of me. Fear of my past catching up with me. Remorse and guilt and shame are forms of fear. The apprehension I wake up with in the morning sometimes. Don't understand why. What are you afraid of, Bob? I don't know. Everything? Nothing? I heard a guy in A describe it. He said it's a feeling of impending doom. Sometimes nothing would even happen to me. I just wake up with that apprehension, when you like that, you got to stay on high alert all day long. Did you ever notice if you go out the door in the morning afraid that crap's going to happen, you become like a magnet for crap to happen? It's a funny dynamic. Do you ever work on a job and suspect that somebody there doesn't like you? You don't say nothing, but you go to work just thinking that every day. You go to work suspecting someone doesn't like you every day. Eventually, they're not going to like you. It's a weird interaction. And so I'm all of these things, and the truth is my very chi, my very spirit, my very being is getting sicker and sicker. And I've watched guys with 15 years of sobriety, 20 years, 10 years, 12 years blow their brains out because they've spent a decade trying to stuff everything into that hole they could stuff. And they're still them. And what do you do when you have everything you've ever wanted and the shine has worn off all of it and you can't stand yourself, and all of a sudden everything you are is right there and you can't drink? There's no relief in the bottle. That's why I think a lot of us start thinking about killing ourselves sober. I've had so many people I've known over the years that, and most of the people I know that they kill themselves, they don't do it when they're down and out. They do it after they have everything they want. Out here, but not in here. And if we don't know anything, we should know this from our own experience, is that no matter how good you get it out here, if it ain't no good in here, it's no good. That's why the third delusion in the big book is so so right on the money, that we're victims of this delusion that we could wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if we only manage well. The reason it's a delusion, for God's sakes, nobody's ever tried harder to make themselves happy and satisfied as we have. Nobody's ever worked harder, spent more money, more obsessive focus and energy on making ourselves happy and satisfied because I'm obsessed with me. No one could ever be more into that than I was, and the end result is in 1978, I'm trying to take my own life as a result of years of my very, very best efforts. So I drink and I get sick. I stop drinking and I get sick. And I think that's the difference between me, a chronic alcoholic that Dr. Silkworth talks about, and the problem hard drinker, or you could say the acute alcoholic. The acute alcoholic has a terrible drug and alcohol problem. Terrible, life-threatening, terrible. But their problem ends where the bag and the bottle ends. And they get sober and they're fine. And I grew up with guys like that. I had a buddy I used to run with. Man, we got busted together. We did drugs together. We drank together. If you looked at him and you looked at me, you might even some days think he's worse than I am. Yet he fell in love. This girl didn't want him partying anymore, and he did the most amazing thing you've ever seen. He just stopped. He didn't go crazy when he stopped. He didn't instantaneously realize what was wrong with everyone. He didn't suffer from depression and extreme bouts of anxiety when he stopped. After an adjustment period, a detox adjustment period, he returned to normal living. Became very successful. Not me. I'm not that guy. I have chronic alcoholism. And so the problem that I face is not the bag and the bottle. It's what drives me so insane I go back to it. I have a sobriety problem. And if I don't fix that end of the equation, the other end of the equation is automatic. That I will eventually pick up a drink, and then there's no circumventing the cause and effect of the physical allergy. You could be sober 50 years and pick up a drink, and it waits for you. And I saw a guy with 45 years sober pick up a drink, and he was dead within 6 months. So I am in a trap, as my grant sponsor used to say, I'm in a trap I can't spring. Abstinence is unbearable, and drunkenness is turned on me, and I don't understand why. Why can't I get high like I got high when I was 20 years old, for God's sakes? I see other people doing it. Other people are getting lit up, man. They're partying like I used to party. Why can't I do that? But there's never been an instance of an alcoholic who crosses over that line that's ever been able to get back on the other side of it. The progressive nature of this disease is indomitable. And the book says something very interesting. It says over any considerable period, even while I'm in this room and sober a little over 38 years, the disease, it's almost like it's in another dimension. It's progressing and getting stronger, just hoping, waiting patiently for an opportunity. I pick up that drink. And you know how you know that? Stay sober long enough to watch people get sober and go out after 10 years. They don't pick up where they left off. If they did, they'd have a chance. But the problem is the disease has progressed and it's up the ante. And so it demands, it's more insatiable now. It can't, the amount, what you used to be able to do to stay sober your first 10 years, it is nothing now. You're bringing the disease is stronger. You're bringing a knife to a gunfight here. And that's why I've watched guys who drink after double-digit sobriety, and then they relapse themselves in and out of AA till they kill themselves. And they don't understand what's happening because they think they're doing AA because they're doing what got them the first 10 years. But the disease doesn't care. And you know what I think progresses? The core, the root of our sickness is what grows and festers and gets bigger. And that's this ego. If you've ever tried to work with someone who drinks after 15 or 20 years, they're the I know people. You know, you can't talk to them. You know, you try to say, they go, yeah, I know. Well, they intellectually they do, but intellectual knowledge is shallow and meaningless. It's not innermost self stuff. They know intellectually, they have memories of being sober for 10 years, for God's sakes. They can quote the big book. I've seen some of the most amazing big book technicians drink again. Oh, they're hilarious. But they'll stagger into a meeting and just start reciting chapter 5 while they're drunk. I mean, it's like, it's a joy. It really is. It's a joy. They're hard to surrender because the ego is more and more defended and more justified, and it's tough. It's a tough thing. And I have what those people who drink again after many years, I have what they have. So if I do what they do, I'll probably get what they get. Alcoholism's a funny thing. You know, the book talks, in the progressiveness of the book, it talks about we have these periods, usually brief, where we get an illusion we're gaining control. Well, I think that's in our sobriety, where you're all of a sudden you're 10 years sober and now you're not going to the meetings you used to go to, and you don't have a sponsor. You got one in name only because you got to have one to have bragging rights to have a sponsor, but you don't talk to him. Because you're at the helm of your ship. You might call him up every once in a while after you go through something to tell him what you did, because he might need that knowledge someday. But you're unsponsorable, you're unsurrendered, you don't have commitments anymore, you're not helping others, you're helping yourself. You're helping yourself. Because the selfishness and self-centeredness has come back like gangbusters. And the problem is you don't know it, do you? I've gotten really sick in my abstinence, where I was obsessed with my money, my gratification, me, and I, to the extent that it's not that I would actually lie. I just would take a little creative license with the truth on occasion. Because the truth might upset you. You might judge me if I told you the whole story. And you know what I discovered? And all the guys I sponsor, it's all like this. And inevitably, we don't lie because we're liars. We lie because we're scared, and we don't know we're scared. I'm afraid of what you're going to think of me. I'm afraid you're going to reject me. I'm afraid you're going to leave me. I'm afraid we're going to have a confrontation. I'm going to have a problem here. I get scared and I lie. But fear is really the motivator for all that stuff. And so I get sober and I'm up against me. And that's the problem. And I came in here a wannabe atheist. I'm not really an atheist. I've known some real atheists. You have to be very passionate and religious about your atheism to be a good atheist. I am just a guy who's ambivalent and scared of God, and I just, and I never liked authority figures anyway, you know. And besides, if there is a God, he's got my job. You know what I'm saying? Because if somebody's going to be God here, hey, right? I'm the smartest guy on the planet. It should be me. And I was actually fortunate of that, because when this thing broke me and I tried to take my own life, and I was at that state of pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization, I was I was like a child who I knew one thing. I knew one thing. That's all I knew then. I used to know a lot, but when I got sober, 78, I knew one thing. I knew I didn't know. I knew I'd been wrong about everything. I didn't trust my own judgments anymore, my own perceptions. I'd been so wrong, and I'd been relapsing for over a half dozen years, and I just tried to kill myself as a result of my best efforts to fix me. Right? I knew I didn't know. And that, from the place of knowing you don't know, boy, the whole world opens up to you. God's available. Even if you could even come in here not sure that there's a God, and if you can get small enough, God will come into your life. If you can get small enough. The problem with this loneliness and this depression and this anxiety, that I am disconnected from life itself because there's too much of me between me and life. I'm disconnected from you. That's why alcoholism is such a lonely business, because there's too much of me between me and you, and there's too much of me between me and God. When I tried to kill myself in 1978, it didn't feel like alcoholism. It felt like I was dying of loneliness. Because I don't know what the hell's wrong with me, but I don't belong anywhere. I don't fit anywhere drunk, and I don't fit anywhere sober, and I don't know what the hell's wrong with me. But I can't go on like this. And there is no more relief in the bag and the bottle. It doesn't set me free anymore. And I didn't. If you'd asked me, I could have told you, do you feel free, Bob? I'd go, no, but I didn't know what I was hostage to. The bondage of self. I didn't know that. Alcohol freed me from the bondage of self at one time. Alcohol was the most effective and immediate treatment for the spiritual malady of alcoholism I've ever known. But when it turns on you, it never turns back. And that's the worst thing of all. I'll sell my soul. I'll burn my life to the ground. I'll break the hearts of everyone that ever cared about me or loved me in the pursuit of a party. And then when there's nothing left of me, then alcoholism does the worst thing of all. It pulls the plug, and now I can't even get free from drinking it anymore. And I know what it's like to drink in depression and loneliness, go and cry in jags, feel sorry for yourself, and yearn obsessively with the good old days and wondering why I can't jumpstart them. But once you cross that line, you can't cross back over. So I come to Alcoholics Anonymous in 1978, and I came here broken and surrendered by the bottle, which is a temporary window of ego reduction at depth. The problem with that is it doesn't last. The ego grows back like a bad tumor. You know what I'm saying? It's hideous. And as it grows back, if you're like me, you won't know that it's grown back because it's smart. It'll pick up little quotes from the book. It'll pick up the little things in AA, and like, how come you didn't make your commitment the other night? Easy does it. Easy does it. Easy does it. You got to stop chasing those new girls. Hey, you're not supposed to be the arbiter of my sex conduct. Right? You know what I mean? The ego's quick, isn't it? It's quicker than I am. It grabs that stuff, man. Oh, yeah. Isn't it? I think it's pathetic that I'm so sick inside that I'll use the very principles of a program that saves my life to self-grandize and self-gratify me. But there is no end to the hypocrisy of alcoholism. So I had to come here and start taking some actions of self-reduction in order to find God. And that's really what this book's about. Its main object is to give me a set of actions that don't even look like they're God-seeking actions. They look like they're they look like they're humbling, embarrassing actions, actually. They look like they're inconvenient actions. And yet they're designed to make me small enough to find you and to find God. And somewhere even find myself. And that's not so bad. Take me off the hook.
Everybody, my name is Adrian. I'm an alcoholic. I've been sober from February 18th, 1935. Just checking to see if you were still awake. I look pretty good for my age though, right? I see a lot of highlighters on the tables, fluorescent highlighters. I'm just hoping you're not huffing them by the end of this talk.
We'll sound better if you do.
Oh my God. And I'm thinking, I'm listening to what Bob's saying and I'm looking at the highlighters and, it's bringing me back and all my experiences and stuff. And I think from about the second year of my sobriety till about the 10th year of my sobriety, I would have called myself a AA technician, Damn, did I sound good at meetings, I had all the information from all the best speakers and, listening to their tapes and going to these conferences. And, it was something that I had to go through. It's a very valuable part of my journey. It really was, and I'm glad I went through that. I'm glad I stayed alive and came through it. I think information, it's powerful, but it's only potentially powerful. It's what I kind of do with it. And I think, the longer I've been doing this, I think the less information I actually need to do it. I think the more power that's come into my life, the less I kind of need. I had 20 different worksheets for each step. I was like a sponsor. You did not want me sponsoring you. You were going to be working out spiritually. So you were. We were doing everything we could in our part to find out if you were alcoholic or not. And if you weren't, I'd be sitting across the chair looking at you like that, it was just crazy, so it was. And thank God I've loosened up a little bit. What I do now with people is just sit down and read the book as it says, word for word, the whole book, share my experience, get them to share their experience. And I think that's, I don't even think I take notes anymore. Maybe occasionally I do. Bob kicked us off with the first step here today. This is the most important stuff right here. We're not going anywhere without the first step. We're really not. And, experiences are coming to me as Bob was talking. I had breakfast with a guy yesterday who, he just celebrated a year, but he had 11. I used to sponsor this guy, and he got sober when he was young. And he spent over a decade in Alcoholics Anonymous doing what a lot of people do, not really making that conceding to our innermost selves, like it talks about in the first step here. He spent over a decade in Alcoholics Anonymous, and he never truly believed that himself. And I think a lot of people do that. I hear it all the time at meetings. One of the things that scares me most at meetings, and sometimes I approach these people after they share, is, I've been around here 6 years, or I've been around here 8 years, or I've been around here 10 years, and I'm not really sure if I'm alcoholic or not. And they may not be, and a lot of them may not be, but a lot of them are. And what that tells me is if you are, you haven't really taken this first step yet. You haven't really conceded to yourself your hopelessness and your powerlessness, that you can't do this job by yourself. And if you're an alcoholic who's not sure if you're alcoholic or not, eventually you're going to take the test. If you're an alcoholic who's not sure if they're alcoholic or not and hasn't really started on a spiritual journey through this work here, you're just on vacation from the booze. You really are. It could be a 20-year vacation. It could be a 10-year vacation. It could be a 6-month vacation. For me, it generally wasn't long. I'm a relapser. And you know what? I can't even call it a relapser. I think a relapse is when someone comes in here, probably gets well, and stops doing the things that got them well, and then they went back to... I never came in here and got well. I came in here and sat at the back, and I judged everybody, and I criticized everybody, and I didn't know. I didn't know what alcoholism was. I didn't know what an alcoholic was. How can you be controlled by an illness? I would say I was controlled by alcoholism for 14, 15 years. In that cycle every day, that vicious cycle where I don't get sick when I drink. My progression has taken me, I get really sick. I mean, it's sloppy, it's terrible. It's terrible for me. It's terrible for everybody around me. And when I'm not drinking, the depressions and the sadness and that crushing loneliness, that gets me really sick as well. I mean, how can you be in something like that and not actually know what it is? Not actually know what it is. And I watched this kid for over a decade like this, and I tried to work with him, and he'd done step work, and he had commitments, and he had everything. And he came to me before he went back drinking again, and he says, you know, man, the obsession's on me. And I know what that language means, the obsession's on me. It's like a hungry stray cat that jumps up onto your lap, right? And then it jumps onto your shoulder, and it won't go away till it gets fed. And when you're in that part of it right there, I mean, that's hard. You can work with anybody, you can do whatever, you can tell them to go to me, but when that's wiggled its way back in again, it's hard to shake that off again. And he did, and he went back drinking again because he never believed he was alcoholic. And I'd done it many, many times. The difference between me and him was that he had over a decade in here. I could never get that time together, but I never believed that I was truly an alcoholic sitting in these seats. And he went and he drank again, and, you know, nearly lost the job, and you know, all the manifestations and the consequences of the illness that came along with it. You know, he pretty much done it all. And I said to him, well, what happened? And he said, man, the first night I went into your bar, he said, I had $100 in my pocket. It went like that. And he said, I started to listen to you in my head and other people that I'd known in Alcoholics Anonymous, and parts of the big book while he's standing drinking in the bar, realizing, wow, I actually do have that physical allergy that Silkworth's talking about. I got it. And he said it proved to me that I had it. He said after that $100 was gone, bang, ATM. And the ATM was cleaned out within a few months. And this guy had a decent job, salary, everything was gone. You know, and he's back with us. And, you know, I'm glad he's back, but he's struggling. He's struggling to get back. That's one of the things I talk to guys about when I'm doing the first step with them. Is that, you know, if I was playing football out in the street today, and I'm talking real football, not that stuff you play over here with an egg, you know, you actually play it with a ball, you know, not 350-pound men wearing tight pants, real football, and Bob comes sliding in and tackles me and breaks my leg, you know, and I'm like, you know, and you ship me up on a stretcher and bring me to the local hospital. You know, and they put me up on the x-ray machine, and you see that I've cracked my fibia, you know, and I actually done that playing football, and it's pretty sore, you know, and they put a cast on it or whatever and put pins and plates and everything in there. See, if you brought me into the local bar here today at almost 16 years of sobriety, and I sat down at the bar and ordered my drink, which would probably be a couple of beers, and then I'd be on the shorts, like, right away after that. I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't. And I think that's part of the powerless feature of alcoholism, that I don't know what's going to happen when I pick up a drink. I really don't. The only thing that I know is that there's going to be another drink. Why? Because I have this thing inside of me. I have it at 10 years sober. I have it at 5 years sober. It's just a daily reprieve that if I put that alcohol in my body, that something's going to happen within me that doesn't happen to my fellow out there on the street. It doesn't happen to my sister. It doesn't happen to any of my sisters. That there's something happens in my body. There's an excitement that happens in my body that my mind can't shut off. Silkworth talks about it. Alcoholics drink, essentially, because they like the elusive effect produced by alcohol. You know? My mind's not powerful enough to shut it off. It doesn't matter if my mom's lying in the hospital sick. My girlfriend's getting ready to have my baby. I got to be at work the next day. And I could never understand that part of my alcoholism. I could never understand why my boss would drop me off on a Friday and he would say, Adrian, I've paid you already to come in tomorrow. I need you here. You better come in. I'm dependent on you. And I'm, no problem. And I go into the bar and I have 2 drinks because I'm only going in for 2. And it's midnight and I'm looking at the little red digits behind the bar on the clock and going, you know what? I'll be out of here by 4. And I'll be in the shower by 5. And I'll be waiting on my lift by 6. And you know what happens there. I mean, you're laughing for identification, right? But if I'd done that today in the local bar here and went in there and put that alcohol in my body, You bring me over to the hospital and put me up on an X-ray machine, an MRI. I mean, they got some groovy machines now that can see into everything. You can't detect that in me, but it's still there. And that's why the 12th step and working with others is so important in this fellowship. It really is. I need to hear that. That's my connection to the first step right there, knowing that that's possible and that still happens to me. And I've went through periods in here too, through spirituality and different things where we, I don't know, start to think I'm maybe above this or beyond this. And I feel so blessed to be sitting in here this morning with you guys, to have walked I just feel blessed to have been sober, the length of time that I have, guys, because I'm surprised any of us stay sober. I really am. I've done everything despite myself not to. I really haven't. And I think when alcoholism really got me by the throat, I was looking a way out long before I stopped drinking. I had suicidal ideation many, many years, and I remember actually coming to that jumping off place that it's talking about in here, where I just couldn't imagine life without drinking. And I'm running out of time. And I remember just sobbing one night as I'm like putting the pills down my throat, lying in my house, trying to end it all. And I really wanted to end it all. I'm sobbing, and that's a lonely place to be, guys, where the drink doesn't work anymore, and you've just burnt your life to the ground. Like it talks about, your problems pile up on you and they become astonishingly difficult to solve. You can't solve the relationship problems anymore. You can't solve the work problems. I mean, you go drinking on a Thursday, and you're coming out of it on a Monday. You got problems Tuesday. You got problems with your employers. You got problems with your debt collectors, your parents, your family, everybody. And that's where my life was in a cycle for over a decade. And I can't do it anymore, and I'm running out of time. And I found myself pushing these pills down my throat. And looking back on that dark period of my life, that was probably the lowest place that alcoholism ever brought me. And I still did not want to stop. Didn't want to do it. I mean, you're burning your life to the ground. You're trying to take your own life, and you still don't want to stop. What is that all about? I mean, that's a vicious thing, isn't it? And I remember coming out of that psych ward and that obsession happening to me. The day that I got out of that psych ward, walking back into the bar with that whole drunken bout started 4 or 5 days earlier, where the whole session had started. I'm walking back into that bar and taking the wrist bracelet off and thinking, at least the thought of suicide's not on me anymore. Doing okay. Crumpling it up and boom, throwing it into the ice tray, and I'll have a double and off you go again. And everybody's worried about you, everybody's concerned about you. I remember lying on a priest's floor, little Irish priest, Father Friel, and he hit me right between the eyes. He said, "How much do you drink?" And I shaved it down quite a bit, and he said, "What? How often do you drink that?" He says, "Well, you're an alcoholic, son. You need to go to recovery." And I remember hearing those words, recovery, and going, "Oh my God, not those Jesus freaks." Because that's what I had built up in my head, And I found about another 4 or 5 years to drink that way. And I'm a guy that just wouldn't lie down. I'd come to the meetings, and I'd come in, and I'd sit at the back, and, I'd hear them talk about God, and I'd be like, "Oh my God, here we go again here." Because I just had a screwed perception of life. It tells me, and I'm going to roll it on because I know Bob really covered the first step here, and I just wanted to kind of share a little bit about my alcoholism. I mean, what do? You got this thing. I mean, we're laughing, we're identifying. I mean, what do? You got this thing. You hear them talk on Alcoholics Anonymous, and I can't put the pieces together. I really just can't put it together that I'm alcoholic, but I know one thing, every time I go back drinking again, what they say in AA is so true. A head full of AA and a belly full of beer is a tough place to be. That affects your drinking in a way that it's just never the same again. The party is well over, but I just still got to put the alcohol in my body to take that feeling away. And my last drink just proved my whole alcoholism, the whole cycle to me. What my life looked like up until that point was I was showing up for work Tuesday or Wednesday. That's when my work week started. I'd went through every job that I'd had before I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. My brother-in-law had given me a job, so he had at his company, and I would not come in Monday, Tuesday. I'd come in Wednesday. I'd start fighting with him. I'd offer him off the job to fight. My other brother-in-law got me a job in the company that he worked for. The first day I showed up, I thought, you know what, this is not for me. Just turned and walked right back out the door again. I mean, I'm just going through everybody and everything. And I show up in Alcoholics Anonymous, guys, and I'm in and out, and people are trying to help me. And what would happen in my drinking sessions is all I could think about was Alcoholics Anonymous, and a voice inside of me telling me, you need to go back there. You got to go back there. And that voice became louder until the point, guys, in my last drunk just summed the whole thing up for me. It wasn't my worst by a long shot, but again, I'd started my work week on a Wednesday, went in, picked up my 2 days pay, and I got a phone call from my friend Freddie, and he said, you going out for a drink? And I said, no, I'm off it, I'm not drinking anymore. And that had become such a joke. You know, the guys that I would work with on the job would have bets on me, lay odds to see what day I would break when I would promise everybody that I wasn't drinking. And he planted the seed in my head. He was going out drinking that night, and I swore off it. I had my whole weekend planned out. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to do this. I'm going to play a football match tomorrow. I had my whole weekend planned out, and that thought just boom. Maybe you should call around and see your friend before he goes out. Maybe you should bring some money with you anyway. And I called around to his house, and I sat in his house with him, and he walked out of his kitchen, and he handed me a beer, and I said, no, I'm off it. I'm done with it. And he took the beer back off me, and he walked out into the kitchen. And he came back in with a glass of vodka and said, here. And I thought, well, you know what, a wee vodka can't harm me. And off I went, guys, again. And I come out of that, it was a weekend of black. I mean, I'm the kind of guy, when I'm drinking, guys, I get 3 hangovers in the same day. Right? You do too, right? I mean, you get your 4 a.m. hangover, and then you get your 8 a.m. hangover at the after hours, and then, that's what my life had become. And I remember coming out of a blackout at the end of that drink, and, I'm in a fight outside this club, and this dude's nose is just like plastered all over his face, and his girlfriend's screaming, and she's scraping the face of me, and I don't know what happened, I don't know, but I know I'm in that place again. I'm a friend, he dragged me away, and he brought me to this after hours on the other side of Belfast. And my whole energy and my thinking and everything started to change on the way to that after hours. And we walked into that after hours, and we stood at the bar, and we got 2 drinks. And I just sobered up, guys. And what sobered me up was I got hit in the head with a bottle. I don't know what direction it came from. I don't even know if it was meant for me. This was a shady after hours, guys. There was no windows in the place. It was a cinder block building with iron doors, It was, you didn't pay in, you weighed in. It was just, these are the places that I ended up drinking. And I got cracked on the head with that bottle that night. And the drink that I was drinking, I put it on the bar after I finished it. And that's the last drink I ever had. Something came over. I'm a guy that, like most of us, started drinking for fun at the beginning of my drinking, 1 night a week, running around the fields of Ireland, drinking bottles of cider, having fun with the girls, and I ended up a daily drinker. I just couldn't, I put it down. I really couldn't. And I come from a society of people that are daily drinkers. I come from the north of Ireland, Belfast. Drinking is just, you're probably wondering why I'm in this country. When I quit drinking, they didn't trust me anymore and shipped me out of there. Sent me to America. I was home a while back, and I was walking down the road that I grew up on, past the hospital that I spent many times in, the psych ward part of it, the emergency room, I'm a hospital guy when I drink. I just got to visit the hospital at 4 o'clock in the morning. Whether it's for a tetanus injection, staples, for a nurse that I met, I got to be in there, you know what I mean? And we're walking past the hospital, and my nephew brought something to my attention that I had never realized before, because it made perfect sense to me. He goes, don't you think it's crazy that we have a bar in our hospital? The Royal Victoria Hospital has a bar in it, right by the psych ward. And I thought, and I just started laughing. And he goes, what are you laughing at? I said, oh, that makes perfect sense to me. It makes perfect sense to me. So I kind of I come from this culture of drinkers, and, I think some kind of love or something came from the universe or the multi-universes or whatever that night that I did not want to drink anymore. And the guy that was with me, I had told him that many times. And, it was a joke. He was my best friend. He didn't even want to listen to me anymore. And nobody did. My dad didn't. My mom didn't. Everybody was just sick of me. And I knew inside myself that night that I was serious about what I was thinking and what I was saying. Some kind of power or greatness came from somewhere. And I don't realize what's going on at the time. I really don't. But I started to plan in my head already what I was going to do. I'm going to go back to that Alcoholics Anonymous. And I was serious about it. I couldn't, it's really hard to put into words what happened. And I went home that night and I went into a little bedroom that I was staying, the little 8x4 closet at the front of my mother's house with the little soccer bedclothes that I'm living in at 26 years of age, an absolute winner. The rest of the family have moved on. My sisters are hitting grand slams, doing great things in the world. My brother's immigrated to America, and I'm stuck right underneath my mom and dad's feet, and their hearts broke with me. I think many things have brought me to Alcoholics Anonymous, but the tears from my mother and father are definitely the things that were in the forefront of my mind when I made the decision to come back to Alcoholics Anonymous. And not just that night, what happened to me, guys, something happened. My mind's eye, there was just like a reel, kept spinning and spinning and spinning of all the people that I'd hurt in my life, all the people that I'd ripped off. I mean, if you hung out with me for long enough, you would have lost respect for me. And I got down on my knees that night, and I don't know why, because I've never been a super religious person. I really haven't. But at the back of my mind and in the back of all my cunningness and craftiness, I've always been afraid not to believe in God. Just in case there is one, I mean, you want to cover all bases. And I get on my knees that night. And I said, if there's a God there, I really need you to help me right now. I really need you to come to me. And I had this feeling that come over me that everything was going to be okay. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror that morning. And I was just, I'm tore up, my face physically, and my eyes are yellow and red. And, I'm 26, and how did I get to this place? And the next day, I recuperated and got my game together and, didn't say anything to anybody. And that Monday night, I got a phone call. I got a phone call from a friend that I actually just spent some time with in Ireland there 2 weeks ago. And, there was talk in his office that he'd worked in that my name was being mentioned of what happened at that club that night. And, some people had got really badly hurt and stuff. And he said, what happened, dude? What did you do? And I said, I don't know. I don't want to know. I'll take the repercussions of whatever happened. I'll pay the price for it, but it's never happening again. And I went back to Alcoholics Anonymous that night. So when you get the Alcoholics Anonymous, all right, we'll have our story and everything, but what do you do? This second step, and I'm going to start it off here, and I'm going to give it back to Bob. This second step, it's something that's confused me. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives have become unmanageable. All right. I got the first part of that down when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't have the second part down. Really didn't. I think it probably took me 5 years in Alcoholics Anonymous, making mistake after mistake, running my life the way I wanted to run it before I even had an idea what the second part of that first step was talking about. I had to really get in touch with my own madness. 5 years in AA going, oh boy, what's going on here? Why do I want to kill myself again for? I'm going to meetings, I've done 4 steps, I've made amends, I'm sponsoring guys, but why do I want to kill myself again for? And I think for my first 5 years in Alcoholics Anonymous, I hadn't got a clue about the second step. And it just shows you how powerful God really is. I don't have a clue about what's going on in the second step. I got connected to a little bit of power that they're talking about in here. I have to find a power, right? What's that look like? See, I'm still running on my own beliefs. I'm still running on my own prejudices. I've gotten everything that I thought that I could ever want that was going to make me better and fix that hole. In Alcoholics Anonymous at 5 years sober, I've moved back to America. I've been married. That's over. I have a daughter, living in a nice place. I'm making 6 figures a year, and I want to kill myself. And I think a lot of people get confused and think the second step's a very complicated thing. But I think it's the most easiest step in the whole process. So easy that I think it's probably the only step that I didn't take. It just happened. It just happened. And I don't know how it happened or when it happened, but all the second steps really asking me to do is to change my mind. That's the easy part. The hard part is it's asking me to change it about everything. But the beauty behind that is I don't have to change it all at once. In fact, I don't really have to do much. Once I get that first step done and made that connection, and I don't even think I made that connection, it just happened in the first step. There was smoke coming out of my heels and I wanted to do Alcoholics Anonymous. Really wanted to do it. And taking the actions in Alcoholics Anonymous kept me here long enough until I really started to feel the nip of the ringer of what it's talking about in the second part of that first step, my unmanageable life. Because secretly at 5 years sober, I wanted to end it all. Secretly at 5 years sober, I thought you were all full of it. Even the speakers and stuff that I was listening to, they were talking about how happy they were. The people in my home group were talking about how happy they were, and I'm like, there's no way. That's impossible. Because see, when I'm sick, everybody else looks like they're full of it. You know? And I'm thinking about medication, and it's talking about there's basically two doors here. You know, to be doomed to an alcoholic death or to live on spiritual basis are not always easy alternatives to face. I have such a powerful ego that's so ground in, it's always looking for a third door. It's always looking for a third door. Whether it be medication, whether it be professional help, anything but go deeper and find this power. And at 5 years sober, guys, you know, I'm at a crossroads. And I've made it long enough in here to know that, okay, I'm alcoholic and stuff, and I've found out different things. You know, and I was a technician from, like I said, from 2 years to 5 years, but I'm not finding the power through the mechanics of this program. I'm not finding it. Information will never get me the power that I need here. There's only one thing that will ever get me the power that they're talking about here, and that is action. Action to do the two most difficult things that I have to do in my life. They've always been the most difficult, and it still are at times difficult for me. One is make commitments and long-term commitments. And the other is nurture long-term relationships. I don't seem to be good at either of them. And if you look at people in Alcoholics Anonymous, even if they're not sitting talking about God and talking about the great experiences and stuff that they've had, if they're showing up for their home group early, putting out the chairs, doing all that stuff, you know, people that really annoy you, people that do lots of service, you know? You know, I do it, like you're sitting there and some girl, you know, sitting in her little flowery dress, talking about her spiritual experiences and how much service and stuff she does. I mean, that just irks me, you know? Why? Because they've got power in their life. They've got power. And anybody that's been around here for a long time has power in their life. You know, that's been able to get up and go to work every morning. I mean, that's success right there for a guy like me. To waking up in my bed every morning and be able to get up out of bed and look forward to the day. That's the power they're talking about here, because I was never able to do that. I really wasn't. And I'm going to let Bob take over from there. Are we going for a break?
I'm Bob, now alcoholic. The Irish sent us Adrian, but we sent them crack cocaine to McDonald's. Let's take an 11-minute, 14-second break.
Hey, please remember that we can't smoke anywhere on the church property. There's a can across the street. Take a little break and meet you back in here. There is a donation basket bucket in the back on the table. We will pass the baskets. I've got to do that ahead of time.